The Levantine Corridor is a crossroads of continents, where ancient humans first traveled from Africa to Eurasia. Both Neanderthals and Homo sapiens have visited the Levantine Corridor, a cradle of humanity. Its significance is emphasized by the rich fossil record it has left us, which acts as a time capsule, giving us a glimpse into the lives of our forefathers. The Levant is a geographical term referring to a large area, in Western Asia's eastern Mediterranean region, between the Mediterranean Sea and the Arabian Desert. The Neanderthals and Homo sapiens, two separate branches of the human family tree, first met here. These gatherings were a tangle of competition and coexistence, conflict and cooperation. And it is in the crucible of interaction that we see the beginnings of what makes us human, our ability to adapt, innovate, and survive. The Levantine Corridor, a silent witness to the dawn of human civilization, had set the stage for a remarkable journey of survival, adaptation, and innovation. During the Ice Ages, this corridor served as a vital passageway for our ancestors migrating between Africa and Eurasia. As the ice sheets expanded, the Levantine Corridor remained accessible, providing a lifeline in a world otherwise encased in ice. The survival of our species was dependent on this vital link between continents, a link brimming with life and resources. This corridor, on the other hand, was more than just a route for migration. It was a point of convergence, a melting pot of species. The Levantine Corridor is, indeed, a cradle of humanity. From the towering Amud 1 Neanderthal, the tallest of its kind, to the early Homo sapiens of skull and capsule, the Levantine Corridor has been a nurturing ground for diverse human species. The caves, scattered across this landscape, such as the Tabin and Kibara caves, have been silent witnesses to the ebb and flow of human evolution. The cave walls whisper tales of survival, adaptation, and innovation, as our ancestors braved the elements, honed their tools, and laid the foundation for our existence today. The story of the Levantine Corridor begins hundreds of thousands of years ago, when the first hominids set foot in this region. The earliest modern human fossils discovered outside of Africa have been dated to between 90,000 and 120,000 years ago in the Levantine sites of skull and capsule. A maxilla and associated teeth recovered lately in Mislia cave was dated to 177,000 to 194,000 years old, implying that Homo sapiens left Africa earlier than previously assumed. This discovery alters our understanding of modern human dispersal and is compatible with recent genetic research that have suggested an earlier spread of Homo sapiens approximately 220,000 years ago. The Mislia maxilla is related with full-fledged Levallois technology in the Levant, implying that its emergence is tied to the appearance of Homo sapiens in the region, as has been established in Africa. Mislia cave breaks the mold of existing scenarios for the timing of the first known Homo sapiens in these regions, said Chris Stringer, the British Natural History Museum's head of human origins. In fact, it's critical for removing a long-standing constraint on our thinking. The fossil, an upper jawbone with 8 teeth, was discovered in the Mislia cave, which appears to have been occupied for extended periods of time. The teeth are larger than typical for a modern person, but their shape and the fossil's face architecture are clearly Homo sapiens, according to a study published in the journal Science. Sophisticated stone tools and blades recovered nearby indicate that the cave's residents were skilled hunters, employing sling projectiles and exquisitely carved blades to hunt and butcher gazelles, oryx, wild boars, hares, tortoises and ostrich. The scientists also identified plant-based matting that could have been used to sleep on. The fossil and artifacts are radioactively dated to be between 177,000 and 194,000 years old, and other evidence implies humans were there up to 250,000 years ago. In the northern Levant, fossils show that a small band of tech-savvy individuals dragged home and dismembered a wealth of wildlife around 200,000 years ago. They hunted and killed a variety of game, including gazelles, deer, and now extinct aurochs, the ancestors of modern cattle, with precisely pointed flint spearheads and blades. These early Homo sapiens foraged at acorns in neighboring oak, olive, and pistachio forests in the cool, humid climate of the coastal plain. They ate the saline leaves of shrubby saltbush and dragged ostrich eggs back to the cave to slurp the yolks. Based on deep-sea core reconstructions, historical climatic records suggest that the Middle East alternated between being humid and highly arid, and that the region would have been lush and easily inhabited for numerous periods matching the age of the Mislia fossil. The scenario also raises the possibility that the eastern Mediterranean served as a meeting point for our ancestors, and other human species, such as Neanderthals, who had already arrived in Europe. According to the traditional definition, if two organisms can breed and produce fertile offspring, they are of the same species. For hundreds of thousands of years, contemporary humans and archaic humans like Neanderthals and Denisovans have been crossing modern-day borders that did not exist in the past, admixing and swapping genetic material. This was not an outlier, but rather the norm. Some academics believe that the strong competition between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals drove the latter out of the warmer Levant, and into ice-covered Europe. The world was nearly empty back then, and most people would disagree, but the European Neanderthals had no choice to live in the frozen north due to competition from Homo sapiens. It has long been assumed that Neanderthals evolved and thrived on the European continent. Recent morphological and genetic research, however, have revealed that they may have received a genetic contribution from a hitherto unknown non-European population. In a recent paper, researchers described the recent discovery of archaic human fossils from the site of Nesher Ramla, which we dated to 140,000 to 120,000 years ago. Comprehensive qualitative and quantitative studies of the parietal bones, mandible, and lower second molar indicated that this group has a distinct blend of Neanderthal and archaic characteristics. Scientists believe that these fossils are the last survivors of a Levantine Middle Pleistocene population that played a role in the evolution of Middle Pleistocene hominins in Europe and East Asia. This evidence indicates that these hominins had fully mastered technology that was previously associated with either Homo sapiens or Neanderthals. Nesher Ramla Homo hunted large and small game, utilized wood for fuel, prepared or roasted meat, and kept fires going. These discoveries give archaeological evidence for cultural exchanges between multiple human lineages throughout the Middle Paleolithic, implying that mixing between Middle Pleistocene humans and Homo sapiens occurred during the Middle Paleolithic. Sapiens had previously existed at this point. Excavations at the site of Nesher Ramla have yielded a skull that could be a late surviving specimen of a separate population that lived in the region. For thousands of years, this archaic human civilization traded both culture and genes with surrounding Homo sapiens tribes. An almost entire mandible and a right parietal, the area toward the backside of the skull, were dated to 140,000 to 120,000 years old, with examination revealing that the individual it belonged to wasn't fully Homo sapiens. The researchers discovered that the parietal bone exhibited archaic characteristics that differed significantly from both early and recent Homo sapiens. They were also not Neanderthals, the only other type of human considered to have lived in the area at the time. Instead, this human sits squarely in the center of a hitherto unknown group of ancient humans. Furthermore, the bone is significantly thicker than that of Neanderthals and other early Homo sapiens. The jaw, too, has archaic traits, but it also has shapes observed in Neanderthals. The bones demonstrate a particular blend of archaic and Neanderthal traits that distinguishes both early Homo sapiens, as well as later Neanderthals. The scientists speculate that fossils discovered at additional Levant sites, including the well-known Lady of Tabin discovered in 1932, could be part of this human group, as opposed to their earlier Neanderthal or Homo sapiens classification. This fascinating specimen was extensively investigated and taught us a lot about Neanderthal anatomy and behavior, at a period when very little was known about our enigmatic evolutionary ancestors. If the Lady of Tabin and others from the Kazem and Zoutie caves were actually members of the Nesher Ramla Homo group, this reanalysis would explain certain previously observed inconsistencies in their anatomy. In fact, the enigmatic Neanderthal hominid could potentially be our most recent common ancestor with Neanderthals. Its genomic evidence suggests that early gene exchange between 400,000 and 200,000 years ago, humans and Neanderthals evolved. In other words, interbreeding between Homo species was more prevalent than previously imagined. Even more perplexing, scientists discovered 6,000 stone tools at the Neanderthal site. These tools were created in the same manner as contemporary Homo sapiens groups developed their technology, with such striking similarities that it appears the two populations, Neanderthal hominid and Homo sapiens, were frequently seen together. It appears that they were not only swapping genes, but also ideas on tool making. The site also produced bones from animals that were caught, killed, and consumed on site. These discoveries suggest that Neanderthal Homo hunted a variety of animals, including tortoise, gazelle, aurochs, boar and ostrich. What's more, they were cooking their meals using fire, as evidenced by the discovery of a campfire that was the same age as the fossils. Indeed, the Neanderthal hominid were not only gathering wood for campfires and cooking, but they were also actively managing their fires, just like we do now. While the first evidence of regulated fire use is far older, possibly 1 million years ago, the remarkable thing about this specific campfire is the fact that the Neanderthal people tended to it as meticulously as contemporary Homo sapiens and Neanderthals would. The fact that the campfire feature survived intact outside of a sheltered underground habitat for so long is really astounding. It is currently the oldest intact campfire ever discovered in the open, rather than inside a cave. To summarize, if we imagine the narrative of human evolution as an unfinished IKEA bookshelf, this discovery is akin to discovering the missing shelf lying at the bottom of the box. The redesigned Neanderthal hominid allows for a more snug fit, albeit a few mystery extra pieces yet to be discovered. For example, how did the various human groups interact with one another? And what does this suggest for the cultural and biological changes that were taking place in human groups throughout this time? Working with these questions in the future will help us gain a deeper knowledge of our human past. The morphology of the Neanderthal humans, according to the experts, shares traits with both Neanderthals, particularly the teeth and jaws, and ancient humans, specifically the skull. At the same time, this human is considerably different from modern humans, with a completely different skull form, no chin, and very huge teeth. According to the study's findings, researchers believe that the Neanderthal hominid is the source group from which most Middle Pleistocene humans evolved. Furthermore, they argue that this group is the so-called missing population that mated with Homo sapiens who came in the region around 200,000 years ago, as revealed by a recent analysis of fossils discovered in the Mislia cave. Therefore, the Neanderthal hominid, according to the revised timeline, was an ancestor of both European Neanderthals and Asian archaic human groups. The discovery of a new sort of human being is of enormous scientific significance. It allows us to make fresh sense of previously discovered human fossils, add another piece to the jigsaw of human evolution, and comprehend human migrations in the ancient globe. Despite having lived in the late Middle Stone Age, the Neanderthal people may tell us an interesting story about their descendants' evolution and manner of life. The international team of scientists determined that the morphology of the bones belonged to a previously undiscovered type of human. This is the first human type to be classified in the Levant, and it was named after the spot where it was discovered, the Neanderthal hominid. This is a remarkable discovery because we had no idea that archaic humans frequented the area with Homo sapiens so late in human history. The archaeological discoveries linked with human fossils indicate that the Neanderthal hominid possessed advanced stone tool making technologies and most likely interacted with the local Homo sapiens. Indeed, the discovery of the Neanderthal hominid calls into question the widely held belief that Neanderthals originated in Europe. Prior to these recent discoveries, Most scholars thought the Neanderthals were a European narrative, in which small groups of Neanderthals were forced to migrate southwards to escape the growing glaciers, with some arriving in the Levant some 70,000 years ago. The Nesher-Ramler fossils call this idea into doubt, implying that European Neanderthal ancestors resided in the Levant as early as 400,000 years ago, traveling westward to Europe, and eastward to Asia. Indeed, the findings suggest that the famed Neanderthals of Western Europe were really the leftovers of a much bigger population that lived in the Levant, rather than the other way around. Furthermore, despite the lack of DNA in these fossils, Nesher-Ramler's results provide an answer to a long-standing question in Homo sapiens evolution: how could Homo sapiens genes enter the Neanderthal population, which likely resided in Europe long before the advent of Homo sapiens? Geneticists studying the DNA of European Neanderthals earlier proposed the presence of a Neanderthal-like population, known as the missing population or X-population, that mated with Homo sapiens around 200,000 years ago. The researchers propose in their anthropological report published in Science that the Nesher-Ramler hominid may represent this hitherto unknown group. Moreover, the researchers propose that the Nesher-Ramler humans are not the only ones of their kind discovered in the region, and that some human fossils discovered previously in the Levant that have baffled anthropologists for years belong to the same new human group known as the Nesher-Ramler hominid. People think in paradigms, which is why efforts have been made to link these fossils to known human groups, such as Homo sapiens, Homo erectus, Homo heidelbergensis, and Neanderthals. However, this is a unique group with distinct features and characteristics. Small groups of the Nesher-Ramler hominid later migrated to Europe, where they evolved into the classic Neanderthals we know today, and to Asia, where they became archaic populations with Neanderthal-like traits. The land of the Levant, as a crossroads between Africa, Europe, and Asia, served as a melting pot where numerous human populations interacted, eventually spreading throughout the Old World. The Nesher-Ramler site finding adds a new and fascinating chapter to the story of humanity. As a result of this discovery, the story of Neanderthal evolution will be recounted in a different way. Europe was not the only refuge for Neanderthals, from which they occasionally spread into West Asia. Indeed, there was far greater lateral exchange in Eurasia, and the Levant represents a critical beginning point, or at the very least a bridgehead, for this process. The Levantine Corridor is a testament to the early chapters of mankind's journey. It was here, amidst the ebb and flow of the ice ages, that this corridor became a vital artery for migration. It linked the cradle of humanity, Africa, with the vast expanses of Eurasia, facilitating a grand exodus that would leave imprints across continents. This passageway, however, wasn't just a transient route. It was a meeting ground, a melting pot of species, where the destinies of Neanderthals and Homo sapiens intersected. The Levantine Corridor bore witness to this historic crossroads, where different species of humans came face to face, their paths intertwining in a complex dance of survival and evolution. The Levantine Corridor was not just a silent spectator but an active participant in this grand saga. Its ever-changing climate, alternating between humid and arid, created a kaleidoscope of environments. This diversity of habitats provided a backdrop for the unfolding drama of human evolution, testing and honing the adaptability of its inhabitants. The echoes of these ancient interactions still reverberate today, as we delve into our genetic heritage and find traces of Neanderthals within our own DNA. This genetic legacy speaks volumes about our shared history, hinting at the intricate web of interactions that have shaped our species. So, as we journey back in time, we find ourselves returning to the Levantine Corridor, drawn by its rich tapestry of human history. It is here, in this crucible of mankind, that we find clues to our past, imprints of our ancestors etched into the landscape.